Just wait a second or two. Welcome, everyone. I'm very excited to be joined today by Sachin Sharma, the very famous Twitter account for Palantir and many other investing topics and ideas. I believe you're into private equity as well, Sachin, isn't that right? Could you maybe give a little bit of a background on maybe how you got introduced to Palantir, what you're thinking so far? And we have some very good conversation to have today about Palantir, bear case, bull case, and strategy going forward.
Hey, thanks for the invitation, Jackson. Really, it's a pleasure to be here, and appreciate your effort and the content you prepare on Palantir. I think it really helps us, a lot of us, to keep track of things. So really appreciate for that.
Thank you.
Yes, I mean, I invest both in public and private equity. Never planned like this. I mean, 20 years back, I was even thinking why people invest in stocks. And 10 years back, I was thinking why people invest in pre-IPO. And nowadays, I'm thinking of doing my own SPVs and things like that. So it's been some journey.
Wow.
My interaction with Palantir actually came where I got intrigued about it is in 2014 and 15. I mean, I know about the company. I was following Peter Thiel for a while. So yeah, I mean, I was saying Palantir, but last ticket was something different. I mean, a lot of companies were coming. And I was doing a project in Malaysia in a digital oil field. I mean, I used to work for Schlumberger. I worked there for around 14 years. And I mean, I was pretty thorough in upstream expertise before I moved to Boston Consulting. So during that time, I mean, I was very clear like what it takes to make a digital oil field product and how to implement it in client side. The project I was working, I mean, it was rated highest award in Schlumberger in 2015, which was quite big in a company that has over those days around 130, 140,000 people. And so I read that one of them, super major, has taken a strategic investment in a Silicon Valley company, Palantir. And this was also the same time a lot of my friends in Silicon Valley were asking me like, I mean, how to get in Palantir, should we get in? And I was like thinking like, dude, I mean, what is this company and why you are so much interested about it? So that's the kind of an introduction. And I mean, the particular super major, I mean, I knew that they are a bit unconventional sometimes how they do the things, but they're very effective. So I got curious, and over the time, I mean, you work in an industry, you know, people in different companies, you talk about it. And I heard good things about the product and how they have implemented it without having any domain expertise. And it was at the level where it appeared like quite robust. So I was surprised, like how a company which has no expertise in oil and gas can come and deliver a product like that. So it has to have something. There was also times like after 2015, there was a bit of stagnation in the value of Palantir. It was even actually marked down by a couple of banks. And so there was like a bit of confusion. And I was also confused for a long time because I was seeing some signs which were indicating quite a different and unique company. Then there were some signs I was not sure what's going on. I think it's how the company was designed. Now looking back, I know like what happened because they were trying to perfect their commercial offering, and which had some hiccups. So looking back, I mean, yeah, I have the answer now, but those days I didn't have the answer. So this is how I came, and over the time I get involved in digital implementation project. I was doing very large digital implementation project during my job in BCG. I was involved in all kind of like strategy, implementation, designing products at times, along with everything else I was doing. So I get to see things on the front, like what it takes for a successful digital implementation, where people struggle. And when I started reviewing what I was doing and what I was seeing in market, it actually started giving me some insights. For example, one of the biggest insight that came to me was that I realized that the view of Wall Street and finance channels on big data is actually not right. Again, I mean, this is my view. And the reason for that was that when they were calling about big data, they were actually looking data layer. which is not true. I mean, you need data, and data layer is important in the starting because these companies and these organizations have so much data and it's pretty messy. So yeah, I mean, before you do anything, you need to sort it out. But they were missing. Sorry, please go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask because I had not realized you had heard about Palantir so early, and we're even looking and trying to analyze, I should say, that soon. I was wondering because I've heard from people that knew about Palantir early, as you did, and didn't work for the company, but kind of had like Palantir had the public perception of being so secret, and no one really knew what was going on, in a way that there was a lot of hype. And I'm just wondering how you think the public perception has translated over time now that we know what they're working on, and if it is still as exciting as it was when nobody really knew what was happening at that point.
So when you listen people sitting on finance channel, yeah, there is a lot of hype, but I wasn't listening to them. I was listening to guys like whenever Palantir is giving any webinar where somebody is saying about it, what their client were saying. So to be honest, for me, what they were doing was very clear. I mean, it was not confusing. Even if today it's not confusing for me. What I saw, so I was reading about Palantir. I was listening like what Alex Karp is saying in 2006, what he's saying in 2009, what he's saying in 2013, 14. I was seeing that consistency, like, okay, this company is on a mission which is consistent. So there was one thing which I was bit circumspect about Palantir is, see, Palantir took an approach which I call like boiling the ocean approach. That means they went for something like, for example, everybody talks about Scrum, minimum viable product. And of course, I mean, they must have taken some practice, but they have taken an approach that this is the problem we are going to solve end to end. And they were a bit ambitious, maybe over ambitious at times, because the thing they were trying, the tools didn't exist those days. Like, for example, when Palantir started, there were no clouds. Okay, I mean, there were a lot of consumer internet companies growing in Silicon Valley, and they were getting the top talent. And everyone wanted like, yeah, I mean, it was a frenzy. I mean, if anybody was in market between 2005 to 2007, I mean, it was like big frenzy. So those particular days, I mean, but I think, so what they have done, like in the boiling the ocean thing, nobody does it. A lot of people don't do it, and it's not that easy, and they struggle, and rightly so. But one thing everyone misses, that you don't do boiling the ocean because the chances of your success is less. But what Palantir did is that they stayed persistent about it, and they actually managed to boil the ocean for themselves. Okay, the product that they got out of it, now the value of that commercial and business model, that is still being perfected. But yes, I mean, they did something. Like, for example, you take the case of Snowflake. I mean, Snowflake, such an amazing company, but the idea that started Snowflake was that they were saying, okay, we are having these people. I mean, companies are looking. You have the storage, you have compute. The cost of compute and storage is different, and companies are not offering. They're not offering flexibility. So idea was very simple when it started. And those days, when Snowflake started, they described themselves as data warehouse company. Nowadays they define themselves as data platform company. Okay, so they tried with a small. They wanted to. They think this is a big bottleneck. We need to sort it out, and we need to simplify it. So that's a different end of solving the problem. Okay, now problems which Snowflake has not solved, they will have to solve as moving forward if they have the ambition to go end to end in the big data OS.
Great. So that, I think, leads us into more of our conversation on the strategy of Palantir. You're saying how, like, that was the goal very early on, boiling the ocean, as you call it, which I think is a very apt way of putting it and something I'd not thought of before. But what are you thinking now at this point? How, in terms of Palantir solving their products and developing them, continuing to evolve their platforms over time, how do you see that from inception to where they are now to where they could be in the future, and what could be a turning point for Foundry, for instance? Is it the price of the product, the licensing or whatever? How can they like reach some sort of scale where they can go move down market as well as really broaden out to many more clients and kind of reach an inflection point there? And is that product innovation? Is it just the operating costs of like building out their offering? Like, what are you kind of thinking at this point?
So again, I mean, like everyone else, I mean, so I know a couple of friends, I mean, who have worked in Palantir also, and so I think the tech is mature. The business model has to mature as we go ahead. I mean, business model still has a scope, and if you see the steps company has taken in the last 8 to 9 months, they were less on tech and more on business model. Okay, so this is where they're trying to perfect things. So until last December, my view on Palantir was so I mean, everyone knows about it that Peter Thiel has discussed this approach of a concentric circle. So I was thinking about it, and I said, okay, right now, and they also mentioned in their S1 filing at the time of DPO that we are going for clients who can pay like who are spending at least 5 million a year. Now, there were two challenges I saw. The first is somebody has to spend that kind of money, and the second challenge, which is even bigger, is you cannot just deploy Palantir. You really have to commit for the change, and change is not that easy in mature industries. So change management was always a concern to me, that how effectively they can deliver it. So I made my calculation initially based on okay, now they are going for the largest company, then they will go for certain downstream and downstream. So I was looking at it like this way, like if you take I'm a consultant, so let me use some framework to explain if that can help. So if you take like two axes, and one axis you have the maturity of industry. That means on the towards the horizon, on the X on the left, industries are very mature. Okay, they have been there for decades. And then on the other end of this, you have industries which are just emerging or yet to emerge, like Lilium or eVTOL. Then on this axis, you have the industries that have, on the bottom side, that have a lot of historical data. They have a lot of employees. I mean, a lot of strong culture. Then on the top, you have something which are just starting acquiring data and things like that. So when you put these two axes, then on the bottom towards the horizon, you have these companies which are very large, lot of data, been there in the industry for 80 years. And then exactly opposite end, the company with just starting, industries don't exist. I never expected that Palantir will go there immediately. So now what I'm seeing is that Palantir is trying to capture the market, and it is coming from two ends. What is in between? Everything in the market. So if anybody has confusion or doubt whether Palantir is going to go downstream or rest of the market, I think they have already made it clear that we are going to do it. Question is, when I said like tech is mature, then why they are not doing it immediately? So if you see how they penetrated large organization, they wanted to capture the portion of the value, because they know that a lot of value they are going to create for a client will only be visible as they move ahead. Like for example, in the case of the super major, they did production optimization in North Sea. Then they actually, in the case of COVID, they said, okay, we are working in managing supply chain. Then in February, we saw that this super major decided to change in a strategy into renewables, and Palantir is helping them in the renewables and carbon abatement. So at the time when this company was making a strategic investment in Palantir in 2014-15, and I was in the oil and gas industry at that time, I mean, nobody was thinking, at least in oil and gas from renewables point of view, oil was $100 at that time. So when they started this journey, nobody evaluated that Palantir is going to help me in COVID or Palantir is going to help me in renewables. But as they went through with this journey, they started realizing, oh yeah, we can do this, and Palantir is there for us. So they want to ensure that they are going to create value which cannot be calculated at the time of contract. So they need a provision to capture it. So now when you see the companies like Lilium and Black Sky, they make this small equity pipe investment. In return, they also get, okay, now you will build this company on the Foundry platform. Okay. and they are actually capturing the value they are going to create for this. So why they are not coming in between? Because they still need to perfect the model, how to capture the value they are going to create for this company, what is the best move forward, and they should not burn too much resources into that. So it's just a bit strategic at this time.
Okay, so I wanted to ask on the SPAC kind of strategy that we have going on. The bear argument, as I take it, is that they're buying revenue, right? That they're entering in a partnership, and one of the only ways they can actually get that revenue is by being partnered. So like how do you debunk that? Obviously that's not true, but how would you go about attacking that argument?
See, if Palantir has to buy revenue, Palantir will not do SPAC. Palantir will go downstream because you can get revenue immediately. A lot of these SPAC companies, they are not going to give you revenue at this particular time. So Palantir is not buying revenue. Palantir is buying industries. Tomorrow they are creating that. If Palantir tool is really remarkable, that means Lilium will have a strategic edge over a lot of other companies. There are two strategic edges. First is their technology and their product, and second is the whatever ERP platform they are having. So they are actually buying the industry. And why it is? Because somebody who has to compete with Lilium, they know that they have to counter these two edges. So one edge which is they can counter is the technology, second edge is data. So either they need to work with a set of partners to build a do-it-yourself solution, which can be done, but for a startup it's not that easy. And as a startup, your focus is not on building big data OS platform, your focus is building EV2. So they are buying industries here. They're telling everyone that we are one-stop shop for you. Okay. And and also a lot of these SPAC. So you need to also think in this SPAC is in terms of portfolio. Like, I get excited about one SPAC investment. When I sit back, I realize that it's not the SPAC I'm interested in. It's the use case they are building in that industry. That means if that industry is succeeded, or when it succeeds, they actually Palantir is there. So if somebody has to replicate that industry or that company, you already have one piece of that puzzle, that is Palantir.
So this SPAC strategy really seems to be very unique. What would you say what are the guidelines you think they're using for selecting these companies that they're choosing to partner with? Because I've seen some people question the Faraday Futures investment, for instance, maybe some other ones, I don't know. So do you think it's more of we're just trying to get a foothold in this industry, as you were saying, or is it something a little deeper than that? Like, obviously, I don't think they're expecting all of these to perform well long term, but are they trying to make it like a very strategic partnership, or is it more we're just going to like diversify in this way? Like, what are you thinking about that?
So and again, I'm speaking from outside in perspective here. So I think if I put myself in the shoes of the Palantir corporate investment team, what I'll be thinking is, what I'm building a company which I want to be a monopoly in next 20 years or 15 years or 5 years. That means I need to identify industries that are going to grow 100x and 200x in these 2 decades. What are these industries? Who are these players I can strategically align with? In EV, Tesla is already big. Okay, if Tesla works with Palantir, that's extremely good. But Tesla is a brand on its own, and to be fair, other companies will come. I was watching Sandy Munro's interview of Faraday Future. I know Faraday Future had a not so good start. Okay, and if I have to bet my money in EV, and which I bet my money in EV is always in Tesla. Okay, but when I listened the interview Faraday Future CEO had with Sandy Munro, it was very genuine interview. It was not like smooth talking CEO interview. He was accepting things. So to me, look like that they are starting from a point. Okay, when I look their car, and to be honest, their car is not in public. There's just demos and all that, but they are building a very premium product. If they can get it right, which is always a big if in EV industry, it's a nice product. So I think it's a strategic decision for them is that we need to help some of these companies to actually push threshold, especially in terms of data and ERP and overall cloud technology, where they can focus on the manufacturing and other things. We can help them to capture these value pockets. So, and if that happens, that reflects good on us.
Certainly. So a little bit earlier, you were talking about Palantir fitting in to the broader market in general, where they're trying to flow with their clients. I was just wondering at this point, what do you, and I always get this question, given that I don't have much expertise, what are your thoughts on competitors to Palantir, given that Palantir got started so early with this grand vision, as we talked about very early on here, of this very broad approach? So what are you thinking that Palantir themselves have said the biggest competitor is some company, or every company pretty much, wanting to develop their own internal solution? So do you actually see another stock, another company that's behind Palantir in any way, or do you think it really is, as Palantir has said, their competitor is their client in a sense?
So in order to understand who is Palantir real competition, I think it is important to understand what Palantir is doing, because that's, it's not very clear to a lot of people. Okay. See, in market, there are few views about Palantir competition. The one view is that Snowflake is Palantir competition. Another view is like companies like C3 AI is Palantir competition. And that's fine. They compete in a sense, but they are not exactly one-to-one competition. So ARK Invest said that Palantir can actually steal a lot of business from GCP, Azure, and AWS. So that is another view. Okay. But see, think about this. Like I said, there is a view on Wall Street that big data OS is data. And that's a wrong view. See, when you are working in an ERP system, you have several layers in that. The first layer is you have infrastructure, you have connectivity, you have on-premise stack, public cloud, private cloud, whatever company is having. Then you also have a lot of core systems or legacy system like SAP or anything companies have developed and stuff like that. On top of that, you build a data platform, and it has you have all the ETLs, the event processing, ingestion, raw storage, some sort of AI ML analytics for data, not using data within the data layer. The data governance. And so this is the layer of the data. This is where Snowflake is. Then on top of this layer, you have API layer, which is integration support and API gateways comes. And then on the top of that, you build actually a digital platform. Some company has to build its microservices, its apps. So these are like 5 layers. Okay. And then there are 3 layers running parallel to it, and which is okay, you have all this, somebody needs to do the API management, portals, monitoring. You also need to have security for cyber security, network protection, stuff like that, cloud security, advanced threat detection like DDoS attack and things like that. And there is another layer which is I'm extremely interested is the DevOps layer. If you talk to people who are working in the industry, okay, everybody is sorting data, everybody is busy nowadays getting their data on the cloud. But what happens when data is on the cloud? This data is useless until and unless you do something out of it. So this data fantasy which everyone is having, that you get the data on the cloud and life is simple, no, it's not going to happen like that. When it is there, then how you are dealing with other layers, how you are dealing in the DevOps and all this, that way is going to define. Palantir is present in all these layers. They have products in all these layers. So which other company has products in all these layers? None. There is no company, including Google, AWS, Snowflake. No, they are not there. They compete. So for example, does Snowflake compete for Palantir? Yes, they compete, because if a client is coming to Palantir and their first focus is sort this data thing, then Snowflake competes with that. But for example, if you see the interview that Airbus had with Alex Karp while in the French interview they're walking, there's a very important section that says that that when they came, they were still thinking about this data layers and how to sort and bringing the single source of truth. While Alex is discussing like, oh yeah, this is already done. What do we do after that? And since they had a match, this is how the Skywise actually emerged out of it. So again, I mean, like just to summarize, does Snowflake compete with Palantir? Yes, it competes in that because a lot of clients come for data solutions. I mean, that's what their priority is. And the challenge organization is having is, so for example, if you are in a company, large company, and you are seeing that everybody is doing digital transformation and now you have COVID, what do? You say, we embrace digital transformation. We'll adopt work from home. So in these organizations, overnight, everyone becomes a digital expert. It doesn't mean he has the expertise, but he becomes. And this is where a lot of our effort helps in countering, because people are expert. Now, what is happening? You have a lot of fake experts walking through the company. So what is happening inside the company is, it's like you honor me and I honor you. So it becomes a consensus exercise. Okay, you give me this much total budget, I take this much, I take this much. So what is happening? The digital transformation in company is just standalone pilots, and then somebody has to come and figure it out, okay, how to put it together. And that's why a lot of companies actually fail to scale up their digital transformation, and the value of digital transformation is staying in the PowerPoint instead of going into the actual balance sheet or income statement. So that's why, I mean, I remember the figure that was shown by Code Strap in one of the video he published on Snowflake, the do-it-yourself cases. I think he quoted Gartner. I'm not sure about it, but like 87% failure rate, and I can confirm that. And BCG did a research on digital strategy maturation, and we found like 70% cases, 70% efforts, they never reach what they were set to do. They either don't fail miserably, or they don't achieve what it was set to do, or the objective. I mean, in one way, very few companies are actually able to achieve it. So it can go up to a certain extent, and then the companies realize, I mean, my job is not to create this ESP system all the time, or this ERP system all the time. At the end of the day, I need to serve my customer. I need to improve the customer experience, product quality, revenue, margins. So, and again, I mean, like a lot of time I talk to companies and they get pretty excited about this data digital transformation. Oh, how to monetize your data. Man, first get your digital transformation on track. Set the objectives, see what is, then think about monetization of your data. I mean, people are running ahead of themselves. So this is why the way Palantir goes in and work with client, and yes, there are times they are slow, because they took time to figure it out actually how to bring client. And this is actually one of the biggest bear statement I have on Palantir, because to introduce Palantir in an organization really need to change how it works, and it's not easy. So change management is embedded, and change management is needed for all kind of digital transformation, and a lot of digital transformation will. But in Palantir is more like a top down, like means CEO level. CEO says, okay, we are going to do it, and everybody has to support it. Everybody has to fall in line for it. Okay. In other kind of digital transformation, it doesn't happen. Oh, okay, show me what are you doing in finance? What are you doing in supply chains? What you're doing in engineering? And everyone comes up. Okay, so they were working in silo, and so that's why if you see the revenue per client for Snowflake is not that high, because they are helping all these things. I mean, when you see Palantir, the revenue per client is high because, yeah, I mean, the whole organization is the client once they adopt it. It's not about like what is wrong or what is right. Like I'm not saying Palantir is right or Snowflake is right. They are two different ways of working. Okay, and there will be, based on this, there will be two different future can coexist, or either of them can exist. One future is where people go and buy one finished product, and another is where people go and buy and mix and match different ecosystem of partner to create unique value for their customers. Anyone who fails to create that unique value is obsolete. So, and this is what I mean, like if you listen Karp interview, I think it was in one of the interviews mentioned that this is their vision also, and yeah, I mean, I kind of buy into it.
Yeah, so what I love about what Palantir management says is they pitch it as the operating system for the modern enterprise. And I think that is what really differentiates Palantir, as you were saying, the top-down approach. And that's not, I haven't heard of anyone that's ambitious enough to be trying to build something like the operating system for the modern enterprise out. And the question becomes, it's the story of, do companies need their data analyzed? Do they need an operating system to be able to keep track of supply chain, products, like everything going on? And that's the question, do they? And the answer is obviously yes, every single business needs to be able to. So I think the other question is, when will that become clear? And when will it be a competitive disadvantage to not be leveraging some sort of application or platform to do that? When will you be left out or lose market share or have a worse product or slower supply chain because of that? That's probably when the biggest transformation will happen, because as you were saying, it's really a big, like I was reading some articles about companies switching to Foundry, and it is an enormous change because you're dropping something and picking Foundry up, and it's like the operating system for the modern enterprise. It's like the whole backbone of the enterprise, right? So it's very much not an easy switchover, but the thesis being every company is generating enormous amounts of data. They need that data analyzed. They need to know what it means in the context of their business. And I think there's only more data being generated by every day, and there's only more that Palantir is actually being able to analyze with that data. And we saw the Foundry 21 launch. I'm not sure actually, obviously Apollo is generating the updates rapidly, but in terms of like step change improvements, I think it's happening fairly quickly, where it's almost like a flywheel. They push a new update, that data can get analyzed even better, generate even better insights going forward, where I think, I don't know. So like, where do you think it's going to get recognized in a broad sense that you need something like this in your enterprise?
So I'll be very honest on this part. I mean, there are two things here. The first thing is the recognition of solution. The second thing is recognition of company, because they are two different things in the context of Palantir, and I'll explain it why. See, recognition of solution has already started. I mean, what we saw in the case of COVID, when everybody was in crisis, what we saw that in the really critical scenarios, like in US Army and defense and some of the space companies, now they're using Palantir. So that is happening. The challenge that is coming is a lot of companies don't want to change how they work. Like, for example, I used to work in oil and gas, and I was pretty good in several of the technologies I was using for reservoir characterization. So I was using Petrel, I was Eclipse, I was using GeoX. I mean, these things were my identity. I mean, everybody in the company, which has over 100,000 people, I mean, if you have to pick like 10 experts across the company, my name will be there. So how to let it go? So that is a big challenge. So a lot of people in organizational context, they pick certain clutches and they stuck with it. And then what is happening? Nobody says it. People smart talk, smooth talk. Oh, I don't understand. It's black box, things like that. And everyone say, oh yeah, I agree with you. Even Jim Cramer was saying that and things like that. So, this is how you build everybody knows inside what is happening. Okay, I mean, if you feel and you are sitting on a channel, you have responsibility to communicate to people, and you say it's black box, why don't you bring somebody in your studio? So when Shyam comes to CNBC, nobody asks Shyam, you have a black box product. Explain it. Okay, when they had like a 1-hour discussion with Alex Karp as a part of Washington Club or something, nobody asked Alex Karp, okay, you have a black box product. When he's not around, then everybody, yeah, it's a black box product. So, so the investors have to think about it. So that's what I say, that recognition of company will take some time. So what happens is following. So take the example of Tesla. Tesla was denied regularly Even today it has been denied regularly and people jump on it, and it's the community can get very divisive about it, like, okay. So same thing is about Palantir. And there is another thing which is happening, which is, I would hope investors, if they can keep unbiased about it, there's certain companies, they become associated with a certain party. But okay, and politics can be very can really divide people over it. So here's my argument. If you feel that what Palantir is doing, you don't feel your data safe with Palantir, or you don't feel you're safe your data with any company, not Palantir. It could be Snowflake, it could be Facebook, it could be Google. Ask about it. Ask in investor conference. If you feel there is a crime being conducted, thanks to a lot of people who have laid their life, we have functioning democracy in several parts of the world. There are institutions, go to them. Okay, at least do not lie. And people go on main channels, oh yeah, I'm not certain about this. I'm not feeling safe with the data with Palantir. Why you are not feeling safe? Oh, it has too much power. So you think power is wrong, or you think the power, oh yeah, it's working with ICE and it's working. Okay, you need to think logically. It's not supporting one thing or other. What is wrong? Are you not able to trust your institution that they will do right thing? Then use the democratic framework and try to improve your institution, which is our responsibility. And people have taken this stand. I will not work with government. My company will not work with government. I'll protest against it. Fine. It's a democracy. Do I agree with that? No, I don't agree with that. But do I go and fight with those people? No, because they are in their right when they say something like that. And it's fine. But please do not lie about it. And this is where investors have to be extremely careful. These things are going to stay with Palantir. They will always be a part of Palantir bear case. So what is the problem with that? The problem is that means there will be a large community of analysts and financial people and hedge fund who have certain political leaning. Okay, that means they're not comfortable talking about it. Now there is another part of a lot of pension funds and a lot of institutions who are managing public money. They don't buy companies because they like them. They buy companies, their SOP is very clear, that when so and so analyst and this much investment banks put this company this much, the investment committee sits and then they decide. So when the input process of making that recommendation is not that strong and people have biases in that, that means institutions who are buying it, they don't actually have license to buy Palantir. So Palantir is likely to have for a very long time low institutional ownership. Okay, now the question is, will it change? Yes, it will change, because when a company is putting numbers again and again, there is a point beyond which nobody can argue. Even people on CNBC said, and they said, okay, even they don't know how to value Tesla, because anyone who made prediction about it, they have been wrong again and again and again. And we saw in last 2 years that a lot of very conservative institutes actually went against their analyst recommendations and they actually bought Tesla. So will it happen? Yes, it will happen. Okay, but it will take longer time. And yeah, that's the game of investing. If you're not comfortable with it, if you have an opportunity cost that is higher, sell Palantir, buy whatever you like.
Yeah, so that's a very interesting point on the institutional ownership. Do you think that since it's lower, Palantir stock is going to be much more volatile because that difference is going to be made up from retail investors, right? So do you think that's perhaps a reason we've seen so much volatility?
There are two ways to look at it. First is, in last year we saw that retail can be a force within itself. Okay, how retail has driven certain stocks. So having a lot of stocks in retail is actually not bad, to be honest. This is my view. Okay, and I've seen in the case of Tesla also, and I saw this in case of Netflix and Amazon before as well. Okay, the question is, see, when an institution hold a stock, I mean, that stock is kind of locked now. Okay. And depending on what kind of institution, I mean, certain institution also restrict that their stock cannot be shorted. They will not, that means their broker cannot borrow their stocks as well. Some institution, at least. Okay. So what happens, it becomes a demand and supply kind of situation. Okay. When I'm watching like order flow on Palantir, I mean, I see like there's a streamline, like for like 10 seconds, stock will just stop at one bid and ask, and like millions of stocks pass through it. So yeah, I mean, demand and supply at this particular time is smooth. That means it's not means that stock is underpriced or overpriced or undervalued. Okay, I mean, you see that stock every time goes down, it comes back to this level. That means there's a huge community of investors which think that I mean, this at least this should be the level of this stock. When institutions will come, and they will come, I mean, at the end of the day, we talk about FOMO. Nobody has bigger FOMO than institutions. When they saw why people are against Tesla, or why people were against, I mean, I know people who were telling me like, oh, WS is like, Amazon is like 300, dude, we need to sell it. Okay. And yeah, so that is the thing. I mean, so the moment they realize that they are missing the part, nobody wants to miss the party. They get really sore when they miss the party, and that's how, yeah, market was irrational. The company, the CEO was pushing the stock and things like that. See, and if anybody has spent time in market, I think the one lesson that everybody learns over the time is that yes, market is a collective force, so we need to honor what happens. Okay, it's not rational, but it is what it is. Okay, so yeah, I mean, that's what I say. I mean, I don't listen a lot of people I mean, I was there in the market. I was watching like 20 years back, before the .com. I know exactly that there were people sitting on finance channels in the 1999, I think it was October, and they were saying the market can go like 30%, 40%, even 100% from here. There were books in the market those days, like Dow Jones 36,000, Dow Jones 42,000. So what I realized, these people, they only say where the trend is. So listening to majority of them is actually waste of time. So I mean, I wasted my money on and then I see like 2 years. I mean, yeah, the guy is saying something which is completely 180 degree from what he was saying that time. I said, dude, I was listening to you. So, and I've seen like what happened in 2008. There were people saying, and they were thumping their desk, there is no way Lehman Brothers can go underwater. And when Lehman went underwater, then there were people sitting there, they were saying, oh, AIA will also go underwater. So yeah, I mean, with all the connection and all that these people have, I sense, and I might be wrong on this part, because I mean, I live outside US. I see these people only on news, that like they're pushing some agenda at times. Okay, I cannot vouch for that, so I need to judge by their actions.
Yeah, so on that, pretty much the way I think about the bear case, and thank you for that, is the fundamental financials of the company, right? So I don't think anyone's buying the stock for the financials today, or some people may be, but I'm not sure that's the best investment. But I think many people are investing for the long term, medium term, even for the growth story. So in a recession, in a, God forbid, depression, I think it's really gonna, I mean, obviously Palantir it is hyped up in its current state. And I think part of that is due to a lot of the retail interest. But if you think about fundamentally, and I've said this before, what's backing the company? It's their contracts, right? So commercially and with the government, what would cause those contracts to fall through or something like that? I think, I don't know, how would you go about thinking about that? These contracts are multi-year deals. So obviously the businesses need to remain in business, and the government, I mean, many people would assume that the government would be able to fulfill their contracts with Palantir. So Do you think of Palantir as a safe hold in that regard, or what would you think in the ultimate bear case in that way?
So I think so there are several bear cases for Palantir. I mean, okay, the first thing which everyone has to honor as an investor is see that Silicon Valley has a lot of smart people. And when a lot of these people are pushed in the corner, they can come up with the innovation that can change industry in a lot of ways. Okay, yes, Palantir has a lot of barriers of entry inbuilt, but we can never rule it out. Okay, what does it mean? It means, like, for example, now say if I take a case of, and there are so many good companies. I mean, Data Robot, Data IQ, Harness, Snowflake, and these are amazing companies. I mean, I don't keep C3 AI in that league because, in my personal opinion, it is not in that league. I mean, it's literally no league, no league of mine. But like companies like Snowflake, Data Robot, Data IQ, I mean, ThoughtSpot, Harness, Traceable AI, some very domain expert like Solutions. I mean, I really admire these companies and what they are doing. They're really, and more than I admire this company, what they are doing is I admire their teams, their the thinking and how they actually work with their client and how they work with their partners. So some of these can actually really join forces. Yes, I mean, probability of that I see less, but I cannot rule that probability out. See, you need some of these, you just need right timing, right people, and the right push. So this is how the magic sauce is developed. So can it happen? Yes, it can happen. Okay. Another bear case which I have for Palantir, and I'm actually, this is one which I'm most worried about is, yeah, I mean, 49% revenue growth is fine. But if Palantir has to become a $1 trillion company or a monopoly or a $500 billion company, it's not going to happen with 50% revenue growth. Palantir has to deliver big quarters where revenues is going like 60%, 80%. I mean, people, like how the analyst community works, they see, okay, I'm bullish about it, and they see, okay, this is the total range of my projection, but I need to be politically correct also. So I go high, but I don't go that high. So everybody comes up, but Palantir consistently beat it. Okay. Do I believe in the guidance they have given for like 30% for next 4 years? I don't believe in that. And if that's what they are going to deliver, no, I'm not gonna invest. I mean, I'll take my investment out of Palantir. Okay, I have other opportunities to invest as well. So in order to become a monopoly, which I believe, I mean, the objective is, they have to, yeah, 50% is good and I'm happy about it. But I mean, if they are doing 50% and they are not doing 70, 80, I will think why. I mean, are they not putting effort? I mean, are they happy? Because, like, how do you see, like, for example, today you are earning $10,000. Tomorrow you get next month $30,000 and you become super happy about it. Maybe you could have got even 70,000. So that upside, like how far and how much a company could have gone, yeah, that can only people in the company would know. We can only look at it in hindsight. So if that happens, yeah, and industry is not going to, industry needs solution today. They need working big data OS today. If you cannot deliver it, they will not wait for you. The average life of a CEO on Wall Street is around 2 years. If you cannot reach within these 2 years to these CEOs, most of these CEOs, they will get something. And people, when they buy something, they will defend it by their life. Oh yeah, it was the right decision to do. Everybody was buying this, so I did this. What's wrong in that? So yes, I mean, that's a bear case for Palantir. I mean, yes, they have improved it. Like, for example, since Apollo has come, they showed that their deployment of FDEs and the resources they are using to deploy has reduced by like 95%, which means they can now serve 20%, almost 20x more clients with the same resources. They're also getting used to of a certain industry. Another bear case I have for Palantir is, I mean, if I remove the government sector for a while, and I will touch the government sector also, but outside COVID, Palantir is not dominating any industry today. Like, for example, I mean, I used to work for Schlumberger, and in 2000 we have technology like Geoframe, and they were like, Halliburton has SizeWorks, Landmark. I mean, they were pretty neck to neck. and quite tough competition. But when Schlumberger moved to petrol, even everybody had petrol. There is no, I mean, it was de facto. I mean, 80-90% companies, they had petrol. So that's how you dominate something. You dominate. So in GNG reservoir characterization, Schlumberger was leading. And as of today also, I mean, it's so sticky. So Palantir hasn't achieved that stage yet. So my question to Palantir is, you have a product, you have a team that is giving amazing results. Why you are not able to penetrate more companies in that industry? And as of today, I have question mark on this. Okay, so that means I need to see more evidence of it. And now I look the same thing in the government, because a general view is that in government, Palantir has a very strong footing. That is true. Palantir has but when you translate into revenue, like at the end of the day, how much revenue are they getting from government? I mean, even you take like this year, let's say they do like 1.5 billion, and let's say even 1 billion come from government. How much government is actually spending? I mean, we saw how much they want to invest more in AI. So a sector and a client where you are the leading provider, in quotes, you are the most important software company for a government institution worldwide, and I agree with that. The revenue in relation to that has to improve over the time as well. So if that doesn't happen, yeah, I mean, I'll be concerned.
So you're talking about these, not necessarily milestones, but ways of tracking the progress. How far out are you looking? You're saying we want, and that was very interesting, given how much the government's spending, that Palantir would be around that mark. So that and the commercial growth, you said what, 60 to 80% would be kind of what you would want to see on the high end. So how far out are you thinking for both of those and the company in general to make sure they're on the track that you want them to be?
So, I mean, I have like targets, like annual targets. Of course, you monitor the news and the sector macro and everything also. So for example, like if you see the revenue growth of Snowflake, which is acting only in the data platform, which is the most active sector as of today. And if you see the revenue of Palantir this year has done 50%, while Snowflake is doing more. And of course, like I said, I mean, Snowflake at this stage has an advantage because they are only serving what people are looking. I mean, right now, nobody is looking, okay, what we are going to do. I mean, at least they only have few cases, okay? In Palantir, they have boiled ocean, they have products which nobody wants to use. Nobody knows about these products. Okay, so if that continues, okay, the view in the valuation as of today, or the analyst community in general, is that Snowflake will be having around 20 billion in revenue by the time it reaches 2030. Okay, does it look high? Yes, it looks high, but I mean, I'm not an expert in judging the market that far. I mean, I have a view about it. And my view is following, that if Snowflake is going to do 20 billion, how are they going to do it? That means they are going to expand in some of these layers, okay? Because it's quite an exponential growth, which means that if Snowflake is going to do this much, how much AWS is going to do, how much GCP is going to do, how much Azure is going to do. If that is true, that means market is far bigger than anyone else is expecting at this particular time. Market is not only expanding for Snowflake. And if market is expanding that fast and bigger, then a company that is playing in all these layers and claims to have products built for future, and only people will know in 4 or 5 years down the line, when in this exponential growth you hit a crisis, you need a magic pill, and that magic pill exists in this company. That means that has to go in revenue far higher than that. I mean, it will not happen that Snowflake goes to 20 billion and Palantir goes to 5 billion. No, that will not happen. Because the sector macro is so strong that so many companies will go along with it. Okay, some will do better than other on the choices they are going to make.
So do you think that Palantir's approach, I mean, obviously as an investor, as someone bullish on the company, do you think that approach, like, are you looking for that to gain significant market share relative to the total sector, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So I think it was great to hear your thoughts on the bear case. It sounded like talent. It sounded like slow growth, perhaps, and a few other things. Not necessarily competition, but it sounds like if better talent goes elsewhere, that's pretty much competition. So moving on to what you had said was the alpha case, it sounds like you're looking for very strong growth into the future. And I mean, that's my thesis as well. So I also wanted to get your thoughts on ARK Invest. We talked about institutional ownership before. Now ARK being increasingly concentrated in Palantir. They have not shared very much. We've heard bits and pieces of their argument for Palantir. What are you thinking for them as an institution buying into Palantir with the macro trend as they do and their theme around innovation, Palantir now being a bigger and bigger stock in the innovation fund? Do you see that as a buy signal for yourself, or are you kind of ignoring what everyone else is saying about the company?
So I mean, first, a lot of investors in my generation, okay, I'm a bit of anomaly that I listen a lot to Cathy Wood and ARK Invest. I mean, in a lot of my circles, it is taboo to talk about these companies. It is taboo to talk about these new age investors. I mean, a lot of people in my circles are fan of Shanos and Einhorn, and so yeah. I mean, so when ARK Invest says something, especially when it comes on disruption and innovation, I mean, I listen because I trust them. I like them. I think I have learned a lot from them, how they do it. So recently, Cathy and some of the analysts has made a statement that, or shared a view that Palantir will take a lot of portion of revenue from companies like AWS, GCP, and Azure. And when I listened to it, I thought, I never thought like that. That's interesting. That could happen. But this is where I think the thinking strategically is important. So, for example, how does Palantir define themselves? Palantir define themselves as an enterprise end-to-end software company. How does AWS define themselves? AWS define themselves as a cloud infrastructure IES and PES company. This is how GCP defines themselves. This is how Azure defines himself. Yes, they have software products also, but that comes as a package of the definition they have of the infrastructure. Does Palantir have an infrastructure solution? Yes, Palantir has an infrastructure solution, but that comes as a package to their software. If you go to AWS, their idea is, okay, you can buy our infrastructure and you can buy products from us, but you can buy from anyone else also. If you go to Palantir says, are you buying our software? Oh, yes, you want our software. What's the hurdle? Oh, you don't want to put it on public cloud. Let us set up a cloud for you. So you see there's a difference in approach here. And cloud infrastructure business is gonna be low margin business moving forward. I don't want Palantir to burn their money in that. The software business is a high margin business. So if they are investing money in infrastructure to bring a client along and the client is big enough, yes, do it. If you want to compete with AWS and Azure, no. That's not what your focus is. That's not what you shared in last 15 years. The only reason you will do it, that if you build a product that is so integrated, well delivered, that it goes like this, that then you also have to change what you are saying about the company. Then you have to say that the Palantir is an integrated software and infrastructure company, which they are not saying yet. So, this is very important. I mean, a lot of people start focusing on what is being said about the company. They don't listen what company is saying. Okay, the companies which becomes monopoly and traditionally are good, they have a very clear mission, they have a very clear purpose, they have a very clear defined strategy, and you can only understand it if you listen to them. If you are listening people sitting on channels and analysts writing reports and seeking alpha or invest. You are not going to understand it. If you are looking for a miracle, that somebody gives me that article, this is the one thing and that will happen. Investing is not that easy. Investing is easy if you think it differently. Like last year, so my personal view is what ARK has said, it makes sense to me. I'm not seeing evidence of it, because I'm seeing the cloud infrastructure war between still the big tech. And I don't think that cloud infrastructure war is where the margins are. There is a margin because of volume, and these companies can actually create volumes. Okay. So I really don't want Palantir to burn their money. I'm happy as long as they're going in the infrastructure for the cloud, and they stay cloud agnostic as well, to create value for the client. Why, if a client can get a cloud, what is the advantage of getting cloud infrastructure from Palantir? That value has to be 20-30% on top of what these companies are doing. If they cannot do that, that's a question. I would like to understand and see. A lot of things in the company are still not known to us. We have to be careful also at times that what we are saying, we could be wrong about it. But as far as so far, whatever I have seen, that's my broad view. So I'm not saying I'm against what ARK has said. I see less likelihood of that based on what I know and based on how I think about it. And if it happens, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, it is interesting to hear what they're saying, especially because they try and put their stocks into themes of their ETFs. So, I regard them very highly. So I was waiting for the longest time to hear them comment on it since they added the stock last year. I believe it was only like 20,000 shares at first, and everyone was like, "Oh, that's not even a big position. They don't even care." It's like, that's not bullish. That's bearish. But then we've seen, I think, my belief is that they've asked for demonstrations and gotten to obviously speak to the C-suite of the company and really get a much better understanding of what Palantir is all about, as institutional investors get to. And I think we've seen, as Palantir has released their quarterly reports, ARK going deeper and deeper, buying more and more. And I don't think they're up to $1 billion yet, but that's a pretty big milestone. It's certainly not, it is, even for them, it's a very large holding. So we're just over an hour here now. I wanted to cover some of the questions on Twitter, and I had the wrong thing put up here. Thank you to the few hundred of you that have joined. I do want to first take questions from Twitter, as we had shared yesterday. So let me just make sure this is up. Okay, great. So I think we'll just go rapid fire here, if that's good with you. Let's see. Okay, we talked about some of that. Yeah, just pick out.
Just moving it to the big screen, so I'll be looking away. Please don't mind that.
Sure. Okay, let's see. Sorry for not selecting these before, but I did read through some good ones.
Yeah, I think we can talk about the controversial one, which is always the SBC. It doesn't matter how much you talk about it. Let me explain what I think about it. Okay. See, Palantir was private for 17 years, and Alex has discussed in pieces in different interviews that how much pressure he felt because a lot of these employees who were working hard and they had the stock and was not able to have the right liquidity about it. And since people are working, though, that means they were getting more options and stocks as well. That means by the time the liquidity happened, there was a backlog coming out of this, and a lot of option expiry was also coming in it. Palantir has done a lot of favor to retail investor that instead of IPO, they went for DPO. That means they did not create any additional equity, and nobody talks about it. They could have actually created equity that time. They didn't do it because they know that they have to have this. There's a lot of stocks already in the company, and people don't give them, of course, Wall Street will not give them credit for that also. So now in the year, this year, I mean, if the stock compensation has an expiry, yes, people will sell stock for tax purpose. This is how it is done. If somebody reads the US tax code, and since I worked in US companies before and I had stock grants to me, I had two options. That means when my option mature or when my RSU mature, I can pay tax from my pocket and keep all the stocks. Or I say you keep the stocks in the ratio of tax that is due and sell it and get it done. And that is exactly what Alex Karp is doing. Is it large? Yes, it is large. So question is why we should worry about it and why we should not worry about it. So let me first cover why we should worry about it. See, Palantir has to attract more talents. That means they will give more stocks. Okay, stocks are given in terms of number of dollars. The number is factor. So if stock prices is going high, the number of stock people are getting is less. So if stock price is not increasing, that means the number of stock being granted moving forward is still a large number. So you see it's not sustainable. So that means people like, I mean, Alex Karp, in my view, and Shyam Shankar, they know it, that no company has ever managed to work stock-based compensation with a stagnant stock. So they understand that yes, stock has to improve, and they're not pumping stock like a lot of people will do. They are trying to do it in a sustainable way, and yes, they have some headwinds against it, and this is where the pressure comes. What is good thing in here? Okay, it's not all bad. So what does it mean? Like if I give you stock, like when your stock mature, I create extra equity. I didn't give you cash. And if I can invest that cash in business and the value I create is actually more than the equity granted, that's a good thing. Okay, so nobody goes bankrupt with no debt and cash in bank. That's what I mean. So yeah, I mean, you can talk gap, non-gap, SBC, whatever. They have a product. They have top class team. They are working with really big companies, solving problems that nobody else is solving at this scale. They have cash in bank and their revenue is increasing. So are they going to go bankrupt? No, they are not going to go bankrupt. Okay, are they investing? If so, the only question remains for anybody who's concerned about SBC is, do you trust Palantir to invest this money responsibly back in their business? If the answer is no, sell it today. If the answer is yes, please shut down this SBC concern. And if you still cannot shut down, please sell it. This is going to stay. I mean, I remember like when Google came to public, I mean, there was an article I was reading that a lot of people who joined Google, like I think before 2000, everybody became a millionaire. I was thinking like, dude, I mean, what is this? How everyone can in a company become a millionaire? And then I learned about this SBC. So when I joined Sharma and I said, okay, there's a stock option and RSU, I said, yes, please give it to me. Okay, of course, those options and they didn't make me millionaire like people in Google has become. But you see, that's how it works.
Yeah, definitely agree on that. And I think it's going to become more clear that this is something that's going to stay and you're either in or you're out. And I think it's really just going to get figured out on its own. But I did want to, and I saw this in the chat and on Twitter, talk about what we heard. I didn't actually get to watch I've been really busy, so I wasn't able to watch the full interview with Karp, but I did hear that he mentioned more products coming. So I'm sure you saw that, but it sounded like 3 new products. And my thought is one of those is probably Foundry for Builders, going from alumni companies to just going public, I guess. But I'm wondering, what are your thoughts? I think we're a long ways away from a consumer product at this point, but what are you thinking about future avenues for Karp to say something like this? It sounds like they're close to launching something else. Like, could he be referring to Unlock? Like, what do you think's going on with that statement?
So whenever Palantir talks about products, they talk about Apollo, Foundry, Gotham. When they talk about initiatives models, they talk about Palantir Unlock, Foundry for Builders, and things like that. So he said products. And if you see how the Palantir as of today, I mean, there are two key products like Foundry and Gotham. And if everything was fine, I mean, both of them will have revenue more than $500 million as of in 2021. So when he says products, I mean something which has been either carved out of Foundry and Gotham or something complementary to it, but can work standalone, can be given to clients as a pack, and at least has a potential to generate revenue of 100 million to 500 million on its own with the help of Apollo in the back in next 3 to 4 years. So that's my understanding is, so whatever Foundry Gotham is there, and I assuming 50% growth per year, so let's say they reach 4 billion, whatever this product is coming, this product has to be focused on new customers. Okay, new customer means revenue stream which has not been captured in the model. Okay, and you know, one thing which I mean, like, I'm a big fan of this podcast which a Snowflake does. It's called Rise in the Data Cloud, and I listen it, and I listen. You know, they bring their customers, and you know, and a lot of their customers comes to them, and they say like how easy life has been made by Snowflake to them. Now, if you go and like we do like all this matching of products and who has what competitive advantage on paper, when I see Redshift, BigQuery, and Azure also, you see, okay, I mean, Snowflake is largely undifferentiated, but the moment you listen to their client, story is different. Their customer experience is A+. And that is what creates value for them, because they do the same things like all these big companies are doing, but they do it with a very simple way. They do it in a way which people feel they can connect with it. So this is exactly what, when I see with Palantir, and they say they are going to create these products. Like, for example, I listen like what Airbus has said. I mean, I listen a lot of these people really like what this product has done for them. So when I listen customers like this, and I've been on that place, I mean, I have been in organizations who have discussed and considered buying Palantir, or asked my view, and I said, man, first thing first, I mean, you need to know, I mean, I need a clearance to talk about it. I mean, like, because I'm an investor. I mean, you do things, you need insider clearance and everything to talk about these things. Thing is, forget everything who's sitting on finance channels talking about Palantir. I mean, yeah, I mean, they can say whatever they say. I listen their clients, I listen what company says, and of course I understand a bit like what the overall macro looks like. Will Palantir go down if the market crash? Yes, everything goes down, nobody is safe. I mean, Amazon went like $7, everybody knows, like 93% decline. Yes, but it came back. So yes, when you look about secret future products, you know, he talked about this, that he said that when we say a product is a combination of all these modules, and these modules themselves are a products on its own domain by the definition of other companies. Okay, so the way I think my view is, like, the way they are going to package it with a kind of a business model. Okay, and like I discussed earlier also, that yeah, I mean, everybody is going for data engineering and data pipelines and everything, but once this data is there, you need to do something of this data. Yeah, I mean, you build all this dashboard and everything. Dashboard has a value when first time you are seeing it, because you have never seen data like that. But it doesn't end there. You need AI ML on top of it. You need predictive solutions coming on top of it. Dashboard doesn't give you. You need a certain product to do it for you. Okay, so my view is that, like I said, they already entering the market from two different ends. So they are very clear that there is a market segment which they are not serving at this point. They need to get the product right, and they should be in a position where they have the resources to support it. So I believe that these new products, and first, I don't expect all these three products are going for commercial. I expect at least one product will be focused on government side, also on like a defense and all these things. But yes, I mean, I expect Palantir will never introduce a product that doesn't have a potential to generate 100 to 500 million revenue in next 2 to 3 years or 4 years. Okay, it's just not worth their time.
So you were saying how Foundry for Builders would not be considered the product because that's more of a subsidiary of Foundry, the already existing product, right? Okay. So that's very interesting. So perhaps another something for another government product, you would be assuming that it's not all for commercial, right? That's fascinating. I did want to ask, what are your thoughts
Let me
on
just add something like why I think like this. You see, we
Okay.
saw that announcement that came from one of the US Army General that they want to spend how much on AI. So US Army comes and they say, we are going to spend this much on AI in next 5 years. You are Palantir. You are sitting next to these guys all the time. Okay. You want to help them to solve their problem. You are not having IL6 at that particular time in the statement. Now you have IL6, you have a renewed confidence from US government that we want to up the game in AI invest. It warrants a new product. That means it's not about like existing product that you never had IL6. That means you never had product at that level working. You need to make some changes. So a government product is definitely coming, in my opinion. Of course, we may not know about it because it's government product, and we may know over the time when the leaks happen and things like that. But the signs from outside, what I see, I think the government product is on card. We already have seen that currently for downstream or mid market, Palantir doesn't have product, yet they have the technology. That means there is a product on card for that as well.
So it sounds like these are not ready to be announced, obviously, but perhaps next few years sort of thing. What are you thinking in terms of the timeline for these?
So I expect at least one of these products should be announced in the year-end investor presentation, which happen in next January and February. It has to happen. Okay, because business is not only about building products and managing clients. You cannot get timing right. Okay, I mean timing is very important, and Palantir has been in shadows for 17 years. Nobody knows better than them what the timing is. So think about them. They are starting Palantir. A dude in the Harvard starts Facebook. They are looking at him. They are coming to DPO at a valuation of 22 billion. This dude has a company of 700 billion, 500 billion. So they understand the value of timing. Okay, so I think the timing, they will time these products well. And if you see this year, the frequency at which they have the demo day, the announcements, the interviews, the language, it's been very consistent and it's very intermittent. They want this flow to go on.
So what are your thoughts then on a consumer product leveraging the talent for something data related, obviously in their wheelhouse and their core competencies? Do you think of that as maybe something you're hoping for in the future long term, or are you just not even considering that? Because I've heard both of those opinions from Palantir investors.
So, I mean, let me say something like, okay, because let me give my wildest thought about Palantir. Okay. I have a 24 TB personal cloud at home. I have several OneDrive account. I have cloud on Google Drive. Okay. I have cloud on iDrive. I have tons of data of myself. Okay. If I need to search anything out of this data, and then I have emails, I mean, that's all kind of data. I need a tool for that who can help me organize it. I mean, of course, there are some tools, but I mean, so 10 years, 15 years down the line, if Palantir doesn't come out as a product that is directly focused on end consumers like me, yeah, I would say I'll be disappointed. That's my end game with Palantir. Okay, that means anything in between, which is B2B, like for example, all these companies who got wonderful data engineering done, now they are struggling because they don't have the right API management and right smart business layer products, or they're not able to do a CI/CD at a scale. Palantir has to come up with some product too, because there is a market for it. They have the technology for it. They just need to figure it out how to best compete in this market.
Yeah, great. So I think probably about 10 minutes left. If anyone in the chat right now has questions that we've not covered yet, please put them in. I will look at the thread, the Twitter thread one more time. We talked competition. I guess we didn't talk about insider selling, but that really goes along with the stock-based compensation. Did you want to touch on that at all? Or, I mean, it's been talked about endlessly. Was there anything you wanted to share on that?
So I think just to summarize on the stock-based compensation, I mean, like I said, Palantir came from DPO. That means they didn't issue any equity because they know that there's a lot of backlog that is to be cleared. That is happening. A lot of stocks options are expiring this year. That's why we are seeing all this insider sales based on US tax code. You need to sell these. I mean, they don't have millions of dollars to pay and just to escape it. So they just sell it. They use this money to reinvest it back. If you are not comfortable with that, yeah, I mean, there is no point for you to being frustrated. Sell it, buy something which you like. If the only reason the only question you need to ask about SBC, do you trust Palantir to invest cash responsibly in their business? Because by issuing SBC, they are saving cash. And where is this cash is going? It is going back in business. So can they do it responsibly? If you think it cannot do responsibly, it's not a company for you.
Yeah. We have another question here. Do you do target stock prices in the medium term, long term? And do you have someone we have Invest with Certainty asking for a target stock price in 6 months?
To be honest, the way stock has price is done. Okay, I mean, I'm not a good guy or best guy because I mean, I use chart. I mean, I used to do a lot of quant things as well. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, what the stock price look like? I mean, as of today, stock price is 26.27, which was pretty much same what was in February. The numbers have changed since then. Okay, so yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, is a macro sector that is also running. There is a fear that interest rate will go high and things like that. So all these have a bearing on that. Like I said, it has no debt. The cash position is good. Revenue is increasing. So if a stock price stays here, I mean, it's just a longer opportunity for people to buy. Okay, if you're looking at for swing trade or like making money, or I mean, definitely, I think I'm not qualified to give that kind of recommendation. Okay, I do believe that it's a kind of a company. The moment certain people realize certain things, I mean, the stock price can shoot anytime. Okay, that's why I don't sell covered calls on Palantir. Okay. I'll not be excited about Palantir price unless it close above $28 for 4 and 5 days in a series, and hopefully over a weekend where it opens on Monday, gap up. Okay, with a similar move in other stocks as well, that will give me some kind of a rally sign, because all the moving averages are converging $28 and below as of now. That means once it reaches that point, it will be testing the resistance levels that was established in January and February, and the stock price will be above moving average level. So maybe trend buyers, they push it. How high it goes, I don't know. See, think simply, like, is it overvalued or undervalued? So again, like, there is no right or wrong in this. Okay, when I see the matrices compared to other companies, it is undervalued in my opinion, and I could be wrong in that. I mean, but this is how I see it, and that's why I buy it. There are a lot of companies I like. I mean, I'm a big fan of that. I don't like the price of the stock they are. So it's a personal. For me, when I buy Palantir, I feel safe. I think, okay, this is a safe buy for me. Okay, when I discuss with my friends and I say I have this much Palantir, they said, "Dude, what's happening? I mean, you need to talk to someone." I said, "No, I don't talk to someone. People talk to me on these things." Same thing like last year, when I was making decision between Stripe, Klarna, and Revolut, everybody around me went for Stripe. Everybody around me went for Revolut because they're young companies. Klarna is so old, and yeah, I mean, it's in Europe. Who cares about it? And I said, Klarna has cash flow positive from its inceptions in the first 14 years. Who does that in the startup community? People love to burn venture money for growth. I like capital discipline. And of course, then I worked on the macro of P and PL, and I decided to go with my money on Klarna. Klarna was 5.5 billion that day. And since nobody was buying, I managed to negotiate 5% discount on that. So I effectively entered at 5.25. Now, Klarna went 46 in 11 months. Revolut during that time went from 5.5 to 10, which is very good. Stripe went from 36 to 95, which is also very good. Is Stripe better company than Klarna? Yes. At this point, it is. But from an investor and opportunity cost point of view, I got my Klarna bet right. And I was wrong in my thesis because I anticipated no scenario in my analysis had a 9x return in a year. No scenario. That means I was wrong. I only got the direction right. And as of today, I mean, like now when I'm looking in the private market and secondaries, the people are asking like 63, 64 billion. So, I mean, it has become over a 10x in a year. So if you don't, it's not about matter of timing. It's always a matter of thesis and how you do it. Will it happen every time? No, it will not happen every time. So same thing applies to Palantir also. I mean, you need to see the companies. You don't control market. I mean, it's not like you're not looking to manipulate market. You need to get your thesis right, like why I like this company, what I'm concerned about, what's my macro view. And yes, I mean, things will happen. So you need to stay liquid. I mean, that means you don't put your food money into Palantir.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see, I'm just looking at the chat here. There was a question about, you think it's a risk of, well, I mean, obviously someone's asking, well, what if something happens to Carp? I think that's probably like, you think about something happens to Elon being one of the biggest public figure. Now that Bezos has kind of stepped away, obviously Tesla stock would get crushed, but do you think Palantir with Carp at the helm is in a similar position? He has like a very interesting background in the sense that he's guiding the higher level of the company, not running operations at all. Do you think that's a risk for anything happening to Carp, right?
So in order to understand like Tesla without Elon or Palantir without Alex Karp, take few examples in front of you, like Google without its founder before Eric came, and Apple without Steve Jobs, and Microsoft without Bill Gates. Okay, so Apple in first case, when Steve Jobs were let go, it actually struggled badly. When Bill Gates left the helm to Steve Ballmer, Microsoft delivered a decade of lost opportunity. Okay, before Satya Nadella came and he changed company like anything. When Steve Jobs came back, he changed company like anything. When Eric Schmidt gave to Sundar Pichai, nothing changed. So what is different when the leadership changed is the culture of the company. In the example of Microsoft and the Apple in their failure, the culture was not right to push it. It was not, I'm not saying they had a bad culture. The culture was just not there to adjust for it. That means the leadership, like when Steve Ballmer came to replace Bill Gates, he was not the right guy for that particular time. He was very good generating cash flows and running all the stuff, but he was not the guy to understand and take the position and to push that thing. So in case of Palantir and Tesla, SpaceX, I think what these people have done very well, Tesla is not about Elon Musk. If you see, Tesla is a cult, Tesla is a culture, Palantir is a culture now. And this is what they have done. They have instilled this culture. That means even if these guys are not there, of course, yes, temporary, they will be pushed back. But at the end of the day, culture prevails. So it should not happen. And companies like Tesla, they have forced everyone in the industry to move toward. We are going into EV because of Tesla, period. No questions asked. So to have a company like that, it's not Elon Musk. Elon Musk has put everything together, but he has now empowered everyone to get a best version of themselves. See, big companies are like institutions. They don't worry about competition. They only thing they worry about and they're obsessed is how to improve themselves. I mean, I'm telling you, if I talk to people in Tesla, I mean, they are not worried what Volkswagen is doing or what Lucid is doing, or if he made a tweet like that. The only thing they are worried about is how can we deliver a better product next time. So same thing in Palantir. Palantir is not worried about competition. Of course, you keep eye on competition because you can get an opportunity to learn with them. Having no competition is actually quite dangerous situation because you can get complacent about it. But it's about culture. So why Amazon became such a successful company? Because of its culture. That's why you say Amazon way of doing things, Google way of doing things, Netflix way of doing things. It's all about culture. And that's why one of the things which Alex Karp said is that one of the best things he has done in his life is, and in Palantir, is that he was involved in the hiring of first 300 or 350 people. Okay, I mean, I know how tough it is and what a process. I mean, in a large organization, interviewing something is different, like when an HR arranges an interview for you. But you are on a mission and you want to hire someone. That means you need people you can go war with. That's a whole different story. And this is what Elon has got right. This is what I believe. And so far we have seen that Alex Karp has got right. Okay, of course, the way Elon has done, I think he's at a whole different level. I mean, Alex is not at that level at this particular time. But the clarity like Alex has in terms of philosophy, what the company mission is, the consistency, I mean, hands down, I mean, he's one of the big reason I'm in the company. And I believe that even after him, if anything happens, and please God forbid certain, I think he stays in company. He doesn't go. I mean, Steve Jobs, what happened? I mean, Steve Jobs, when the next time he came, he knew the leadership failures he made earlier. He made a culture. This is Apple way of doing things. What happened after Steve Jobs? Yes, there was a temporary setbacks. Yeah, I mean, but Apple is still doing good. It's not innovating in that way. It's not Steve Jobs Apple in all the way. It's a Steve Jobs plus Tim Cook's Apple, but it is doing good because the leadership was ready to take it.
Yes. Thank you for that commentary. That was, I think, a great question and an even better answer. So I wanted to just thank you so much for this, Sachin. I just put your display name right there for everyone to see. Obviously, I'm sure many people are aware of you and your work, but if they aren't, I put a link in the description to your Twitter. Do you want to talk about what you're doing for the Palantir community?
Yeah, I mean, in general, I came from corporate world. That means people like me are very limited and active in general on social media, and especially like what the investment. Okay, it's just, like I said, it's taboo in my community to talk about it. So yeah, I mean, I had Twitter account for a long time, but I wasn't using it. I was learning. Like a lot of my thesis, actually, I learned from the community, which was on YouTube and which was people were talking like in lectures or in books. I was thinking like what I was listening and reading on the media channels. I mean, I was the kind of a guy who will wake up and take Financial Times in hand with a cup of tea and spend like 2 hours on that. That's my life was. I mean, yeah, it doesn't help in industry. I mean, I have an MBA. That means, and my MBA, all the electives project, everything was in finance. That means, irrespective whatever I say, I'm not bad at finance. A lot of companies come to me and say, okay, we want your help for that restructuring, how to go about IPO and things like that. So, I mean, I understand these things a bit. Okay, I mean, people come to me asking, okay, I have 10 million, where should I go and invest into it? What do you think? How to get SpaceX, things like that. Talk to those kind of things to my friend. But what I realized is that you learn from community, and this is why I actually became active in community, because I thought if I put my thesis out, people will ask me questions and that will give me a chance to look back. Okay, and yeah, I mean, people ask me, and you know, there's benefit. I mean, sometimes they ask me and they point me in a direction and a piece of information which I was not aware. So it's very helpful and it's fun. I mean, I have made so many friends over last 7-8 months. I have been active, and yeah, I mean, my sincere apologies. I mean, because I have a full-time job now, I'm starting running a business. I may be joining a job again by the end of this month. I still have to confirm. There are a couple of things to be discussed and negotiated. So I'll probably be taking a role of a kind of a digital strategy lead in a large company. So yes, I mean, I'm under NDAs. I'm under information that is privileged at times, which I cannot share. Okay, I have a lot of restrictions in terms of insider sailings. I mean, I get all the clearance. Every trade I do, it has to go through with the process. Yeah, but thing is, I'm learning. I mean, I get to learn things and test things, which is quite unique, which was not available to all of us 20 years back. 20 years back, if you can get Financial Times in hand, you think you are God in finance. You know things like nobody knows. It's not true.
Yeah, yeah. And thank you so much for this. As you were saying, the community, I mean, even just being able to have you on here, everything you said was so insightful and gave me so much to think about the entire discussion. And I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I'm sure everyone else does as well. So thank you
I
very
really
much, Sachin.
appreciate. I really appreciate, and I appreciate. I mean, a lot of content you made. Yeah, I mean, like a lot of time I watch your videos, I find something, I say, oh, I never cited that piece of information. Okay, I mean, the way you bring things together, I think it's people like me. I mean, who are short of time, it's extremely helpful. So really appreciate that, and you brought a lot of people to talk about Palantir. You also got to actually get in contact with Shyam and team up there to ask questions which we put. So I think we really appreciate. I mean, and I hope you continue it.
Yes, definitely.
So okay, I think that's all from my side. Thank you. Really appreciate for your invitation and the time with you.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And thank you for everyone for joining.
Really
Have a nice
appreciate
day.
it. Okay, you too. Bye.
Bye.